One of the craziest nights in the NBA, and a lot of it had to do with what happened in Toronto. We got Drake versus DeMar. We got RJ and Gradey going off. We got an overtime game. We got the Vince Carter jersey retirement. Let's go to the film room. Gradey Dick and RJ Barrett had their fair share of incredible plays to make the Raptors win this game. RJ had a great night making plays like this. A nice skip pass to Ochai Agbaji, who nails the three. Ochai, by the way, 4 of 5 from three-point land tonight, made all 4 of his corner threes. The development continues. We talked about the stutter rip from Gradey Dick. Here he is. Stutter rip settles into a step back mid-range jumper. That's the second game in a row that he's put that out there. So very early in this game, Gradey didn't get a call going to the bucket, kind of lackadaisically went to the other side of the floor, didn't get back on defense. Darko called a timeout, immediately grilled Gradey for not getting back on defense. He stepped up in a major way in the fourth quarter and overtime. Here he is jumping the pass. Great job using his length. And then beautiful pass to Ochai for the alley-oop. Another great job by Gradey of getting to his spot offensively. Sees the pick and roll. Kind of knows where he wants to get his defender. Again, really likes that mid-range baseline jump shot. And so obviously, as we know, the score there is not indicative of what happened in the game. The Kings caught up. It was a lot of bad effort too, right? So there was some mistakes, there was fouls, there was turnovers. But I do want to highlight the good before I get to that. Very tense time here. Jakob Poeltl has officially fouled out. Raptors have to run with Jonathan Mobo as their center. And RJ and Gradey have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. This time a Spain pick and roll action. Miscommunication by the Kings on defense. Really bad miscommunication. And it leads to a Gradey shot. Gradey, great job of seizing the moment there, giving the Raptors a 4-point lead. On Monday against the Nuggets, a lot of people said that the RJ Barrett shot to kind of try to win the game was ill-advised. And he told you guys that RJ Barrett likes that shot. Well, tonight, he took the exact same shot. Again, the defense sags off and just rises up over top and makes the three. It is now a 5-point game for the Raptors with a minute left. Heading into overtime now, where the Raptors needed to make some plays. RJ set the tone early. Again, using the pick and roll, settling into this floater. Next possession down, getting the rebound, grab and go. Bad defense by the Kings, finds Chris Boucher, who finishes. Great game by Chris Boucher, by the way, who was just awesome off of the bench. Really carried the Raptors in the first half with 24 points total. Especially in overtime, the Kings were trying to hunt Gradey Dick, mismatch hunt Gradey Dick. Here, DeMar DeRozan gets the better of him, but I like that Gradey took on the challenge as overtime progressed. So here he is, again, DeMar on Gradey. Good job of using his length. Not fouling, not jumping, just staying with it. DeMar misses a really tough look there. And that was great by Gradey to force him into that tough look. Same thing here. You know, Fox gets Gradey on an island. This could determine the game, right? It's a 1-point game. And what Gradey does, slides his feet, pokes the ball out. Raptors are out and running. And RJ Barrett goes all the way and finishes with an and one. A huge play that was determined by the 2 best players on the Toronto Raptors as they're currently constructed. Raptors really tried to run the Gradey-RJ pick and roll, especially in overtime. Here, Chris Boucher almost loses it to Gradey. Again, good job by Gradey to attack the closeout and settle into a floater through contact. And so the Raptors won the game after that, folks. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of mistakes. I think, we can talk, let's talk about the free throws right away. RJ Barrett missed 3 very key free throws. One of them in the fourth quarter, 2 of them in overtime, which could have made it a 5-point game. Instead, they made it a 3-point game, and that was right after this, by the way. So it's just, yes, the free throws are an issue. He's shooting 65% from the field. But when a guy has 31, 9, and 6, has so many other plays that he made to help the Raptors win the game, I understand that we want to jump to the free throws. And by the way, I bet that he feels that same way. I bet you that RJ Barrett right now, even despite that game, is saying, man, I could have finished this in the fourth quarter if I just made my free throws. And he'd be right? And so ultimately, look, I think this is the process of a developing team. And I know you guys are probably going to get annoyed of how many times I say that throughout the course of this season. But damn it, that is the type of win that you wanted this Raptors team to have throughout the year. Jakob gets fouled out. Davion Mitchell having turnovers. I was going to do a little video on that, but we'll be able to do that throughout the road trip. Davion Mitchell having turnovers and some sloppy plays, but really locking down defensively sort of showed you the pros and cons of a guy like that. Chris Boucher popping off and playing well and really giving you energy off of the bench. You have flashes from Jonathan Mobo, who had some really, really great defensive possessions against Fox and Sabonis in this one. And you have Jamison Battle, who's making threes and was a great lift offensively. The Raptors in general shot 45% from three. I believe they made 17 threes in this game, which is like, hey, that's a great shooting team. And so developmentally, the Raptors being put in a situation where they had to grind out a win and had to figure out how to execute in the fourth quarter, huge for the long-term implications of the team. I can remember right now, as I'm saying this, moments where Kyle and DeMar were in a very similar position in the 2012, 2013 or 2013, 2014 years with Rudy Gay, or, in 2013, 2014, once they made the trade, working through the kind of working through the motions, I should say, of how it would be to execute in those moments. What shots Gradey would be looking towards, what would RJ look towards, what actions are you running, what are you running out of timeouts. I also think this is important for Darko Rajakovic to learn as he develops as a coach. And so developmentally, being put in situations like the Nuggets game on Monday where they struggled and they lost and they couldn't figure it out and there were injuries and fouls and all that type of stuff, which is true, being put in that position and then closing out and winning the game is huge. It's massive. And I can't overstate that enough. I think it's a really, really big deal that the Raptors found a way to win this game, even in spite of the mistakes that RJ Barrett, that Gradey Dick, that Davion Mitchell had. And so I just thought it was a great game. Shifting away from the basketball itself, what a crazy, crazy game. What an emotional ride of a night of Raptors basketball. Okay, so I got there at like 4:15, right? The press conferences starts at 4:30, and I'm scrambling to get things ready and, ask a question if I possibly could. And, it was emotional at the gate. Like Vince was crying as soon as he got to the press conference, right? Really emotional. You could tell how important of a moment this was. And to see how he went about it and how he kind of talked to the fan base, right? There were multiple moments, both in the press conference beforehand and in the speech at halftime, where he talked directly to you as the fan and said, like, hey, man, like, we've all known everything that happened in the past. When this jersey goes up, whether you like it or not, embrace it because it's your history. And that is actually what I tried to say in the video essay too that I made. I'm like, look, like, whether you agree or not with this, it happened. Vince Carter happened in Toronto, and you're either going to embrace it and understand that that's part of Raptors history and what made this franchise what it is over the last 30 years, or you're just going to be petty and you're just going to be holding a grudge for no reason. And so I think looking at tonight, there were so many emotions from so many different people, and you see the faces. I got a chance to talk to Mo Pete for a second and say what's up. I watch out for that. Have a video essay coming out on Mo Pete in a couple of days as well, which I hope you guys enjoy. And you see some of the different faces. There was Dwayne Casey there, a couple of the older coaches, and a Butch Carter was there. Obviously, his teammates were there too. Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, all those people. It was an exciting night for the franchise, not just for the organization this year, not just the future is now, all that type of stuff that like is trying to be sold and propped up, but also the like embracing what happened and also shifting away from it and like, hey, there's this excitement around it. You could feel that emotion in the atmosphere. You could feel that from the fans. You could, as soon as the halftime horn hit, as soon as it hit, the fans just started to like bubble. Like you could hear the atmosphere like, oh shit, it's about time. It's about that time. And I just thought that was incredible. I like days and nights like tonight make me so thankful that I do this for work. It makes me really really happy that I'm able to do this for work and cover moments like this and be a part of moments like this in a small way. And kind of give that coverage and analysis and perspective to you guys as much as I possibly can too. And so it was a very cool moment. I thought the Raptors did a great job. Speaking of, I know a lot of people on the content side for the Raptors and event side for the Raptors, how much work they put into this, the months and the hours that they have been working to get this night, those 20 minutes at halftime, perfect. They've worked tirelessly. I was speaking to an events coordinator today that she was like, I've been here since 8 in the morning, putting stuff up, setting things up. That little 15 that you saw, that was all the events people. And so you got to appreciate like those types, the people that grind, that don't really get the love that they're supposed to, because they make these moments happen and we do not give them enough credit for that. And so the content creation team was on par. The video essay, the whole video edit, shout out to Sticks, my guy who actually cooked on that. It was all incredible. And I mean, like, just bar none. I'm sure you guys all watched it on TV. It was just as great on TV. The moments were just as great. Vince being overcome with emotions, doing the roar. It was all great. Doing the little celebration too, amazing. Like, that's great. And then on top of that, we had a great game in which a Canadian, RJ Barrett, was great. And Chris Boucher, another Canadian, was also great. It just felt like it was poetic. How could you not be romantic about basketball? They say that about baseball, but how could you not be romantic about basketball? There's so much there, and I love that. And speaking of like the poeticism in this, it is somewhat ironic or coincidental, or maybe it isn't, that the other side of the ball was DeMar DeRozan. And you could tell, I asked him post game, I said like, hey, was there a little bit of extra? I know you obviously want to win every game, but was there a little bit of extra on that because of the night? He said no. He played it cool. But I kind of feel like there was. He was gunning for it. Like, obviously, DeRozan is a great player who is going to be great. I mean, he was runner-up for Clutch Player of the Year last year. He doesn't need an added incentive to be great in the fourth quarter and overtime. But he was great in the fourth quarter and overtime. And DeRozan is not an antagonist in general for Raptors fans. In fact, tonight, they gave him a massive standing ovation on 2 occasions, kind of recognizing, being like, hey, we know it's Vince Carter night and we love Vince Carter, but also like, you're very important to us too, and we want to let you know. I think all 19,000 people in their brains had that idea, which it was like, it was a very interesting thing. Kind of like hive mentality of like, okay, we understand, we are going to acknowledge Vince, and we're also going to really cheer loudly for Kyle when he pops up on the screen. But DeMar, just understand the love is there for you too. And so when he was answering back for every shot and every opportunity in the fourth quarter, it just felt like there was a little bit of extra on that. Just like, hey, by the way, y'all, like, I can do this too, right? And I thought it created this perfect. Again, antagonist is the wrong word because of DeMar and him being the Raptors, but yeah, a little bit of an antagonist because you wanted the Raptors to win the game. And the Drake aspect of it added another element, a more media element to it, where he jumps on the broadcast and says if they put DeRozan's jersey on, that just heightened any kind of antagonist type role you have. And I think, I'm not going to get into the whole Drake and DeRozan stuff. Maybe I will actually. I think it is corny as hell that Drake said that. I'm a huge Drake fan. I'm a massive Drake fan. I have 2 Drake albums right there. Okay? I am a massive Drake fan. And I also love Kendrick Lamar. I'm not one of those people that's like, I am Team Kendrick or Team Drake. I thought it was a dope beef that gave me 12 songs to listen to. That being said, I think Drake's kind of corny for that. I'm not going to lie to you. Because it's like, DeRozan obviously went out, did the Not Like Us video, was on stage, all that type of stuff. I'm glad D-Rose came home, yada, yada, yada. We know that, right? I think even afterwards, DeRozan said that he still had a lot of love for Drake and what Drake had done for him. So I don't think it was ever really an animosity thing from Drake's perspective. I just think it was a like, let me rep my hometown. Obviously, I'm from Compton. Kendrick's from Compton. I'm going to show love to my home. That was where DeRozan was coming from. And so for Drake to spin it into this thing where it's like, hey, if he puts his jersey up there, I'm going to tear it down. And then DeRozan responding afterwards, I think this will bubble into something that it doesn't necessarily need to be, truthfully. And, you know, I'm a big fan of SB Nation, the Secret Base, the YouTube videos. I mean, based on the video essays that I do, I think you can tell I'm a big fan of Secret Base. And so they do this thing where it's like, where do these beefs come from? You know? And I actually think a Drake DeMar DeRozan one would be excellent right now, because it's like, there's so much history with DeRozan, and also the tie to what Drake has to do with it, and like him becoming a global ambassador at the same time as Kyle and DeMar becoming these massive figures in Raptors history, and sort of the connection there, the magazine cover, all that type of stuff. It really was a moment, you know, this last decade was a moment in time for Toronto, not just basketball wise, but culturally, right? Like Toronto became a cultural hub over the last decade. And in part that was because of Drake. In part that was because of the basketball and that growing in a way it does. And other artists, by the way, doing that too. Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, etc. Like it's incredible the amount of stuff that has come from Toronto over the last 10 plus years. And so, I think there is something there into like, how did this end up becoming a beef? Not just, I know it, I see it on social media, not just with Drake and DeMar, but with some Raptors fans and DeMar. And I think that part of it has to do with the fact that he's constantly been asked the question about the championship. And he always says like, hey, if I was there, we would have won the championship too. And like, I think that's just part of the psyche of who DeMar DeRozan is. I don't think he would be willing to admit that, like, you know what? Kawhi's a better player than me. I don't think any NBA player would admit that. And so it's fascinating. And I know I'm rambling, but it's just such a great night of basketball. And I didn't even get into Joel Embiid punching someone, a reporter who probably deserved it. And, you know, going into the Donovan Mitchell game winner and the NBA stuff, you can go and listen to the Athletic NBA Daily, where I will talk about the NBA stuff. But my God, was it an eventful day for the Toronto Raptors. So to recap, RJ and Gradey and the Toronto Raptors had a good developmental win, both in development, both in the win column. DeMar and Drake, the beef continues, I guess. And lastly, Vince Carter finally will be up in the rafters forever. And that is much deserved. That is as incredible as an honor as you can have for the type of career that Vince has had. And I'm just happy that I was there to experience it, man. I'm happy that you guys are able to watch this video as well. As always, subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel, where you get stuff like this and other stuff. Samson's doing great work. A lot of our great podcasts are going to be talking about the craziness that went down. You can listen to Run It Back on Monday. We've got a bunch. We've got a bunch of stuff coming, and I'm really proud to be a part of that as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, subscribe, like, do the things you guys usually do. We will see you guys later. Bye-bye.